Hello viewers and welcome to another match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today we've another game sent in from the Fantasy Flight Games Event Center. On the left we have Mike Utenkov playing as Commander Starblaze, while to the right we see Jeffery Allen instead opting to play as Baharroth. Our Eldar player begins the game holding our initiative token, and his first deploy action is going to be throwing out a copy of the one-cost event, Death from Above. You pick a printed mobile keyword non-elite army unit in your hand and put it into play at the last planet, and it looks as though the recipient of that effect is going to be a Soaring Falcon, a normally 3-cost vehicle trait army unit with 2 command icons, 1 attack, as well as a rather respectable pool of 5 hit points in addition to the aforementioned mobile keyword. Note that it sits directly opposite an Astra Militarum allied card that does happen to be Commander Starblaze's premise after all. It's going to be a Sanctioned Psyker sitting at 5, played out by Starblaze. That is a 2-cost, 2 command icon, 0/4 Psyker, and note, at planet number 4 we've now got a copy of Earthcast Technician, 1-cost, 1/1 with a command icon, and it allows its player the opportunity to take a look at the top 6 cards of their deck and to add either a drone trait card or an attachment to their hand after revealing it to their opponent. Starblaze was fortunate enough to come across a copy of the Tau Ubiquitous economy card Recon Drones, and at planet number 1, looks like we may be in store for a rather unconventional Baharroth deck indeed, because that's going to be a copy of the Kabalite Halfborn. It's a 1/1 for 1 with no command icons to speak of. Whenever it leaves play, whether that's through being destroyed or being bounced back to your hand, it does allow you the opportunity to draw 1 card, but there's not exactly a lot of synergy to speak of for that card in either Baharroth or Eldar as a warlord or faction. Note, planet number 4, we've got a copy of Slith Mercenary thrown out onto the tabletop by Baharroth. That's going to be a 1-cost, 2 command icon, 2/2 warrior that either player can purchase control of for the investment of 2 resources, but it looks as though Starblaze need not necessarily bother because that 0/1 2 command icon, 0 cost, albeit limited keyword Recon Drones is now going to be sitting at planet number 4, and 3 command icons definitely beats 2, so it looks like Starblaze is going to be winning command at that planet. But we've got a second copy of Earthcast Technician sitting upon planet number 2. That's going to be a second copy of that limited keyword Recon Drones being added to Starblaze's hand, so that's going to set him up very nicely for the following round's deploy phase to throw out another 0-cost 2 command icon unit somewhere onto the tabletop there. And now note, both of our players have come across a respective copy of their signature army units. At planet number 2 for Baharroth, that's going to be a copy of his titular Hawks. For the cost of 3, they've got 2 command icons. They're another mobile keyword unit. They're a 0/2, but provided they're at the same planet as their Warlord Baharroth, they're going to be able to attack for a total of 3. And then at planet number 1, Starblaze has got the Ardent Auxiliaries. For the cost of 2, they're a 2/2 with a command icon, and their ability isn't going to be doing anything really this round, but should they get swept into Starblaze's HQ, whenever they happen to be commit to a planet as a reaction, provided you've got an AM unit sitting already at that planet, you can ready the auxiliaries, and the more action advantage, the better. So note, planet number 1 is going to be initiative in the possession of Baharroth there. It's going to be Ossus 4, the Steel 1 resource planet, and we've got a copy of Ion Rifle currently equipped by the ECT at planet number 2. So for the cost of 1 resource, that ECT is currently going to be able to attack for a potential 4, and I suppose I wouldn't be tremendously surprised to see Baharroth show up at that planet and try to pick off the Earthcast Technician before it becomes a big bit of a liability, but I suppose planet number 5 is going to be that 2-card bonus planet where players are currently tied for command. Planet number 4 is going to be the wildcard planet, which could allow you to trigger absolutely any ability, and that happens to be a planet where Baharroth is outright losing command. And then I suppose for Starblaze, he doesn't really have any AM units worth shifting around, but let's see where exactly our warlords show up. They're both going to arrive at planet number 2. So note, planet number 1, Baharroth is going to naturally have initiative, and at planet number 2, he's going to maintain initiative because both warlords are present, and Jeffrey to the right is going to be our homeboy holding the initiative token. But planet number 1 is going to be a couple of resources resources to the left for Starblaze. Note planet number 2 is going to be a total of 1 resource to the right for Jeffery, our Baharroth player. That's Yavharn, albeit obscured by glare. Planet number 3 and 5 is going to be no contest or a push, respectively. And planet number 4 is going to be a card and a resource to the left, won by Starblaze. As our combat phase begins, looks like we see a lot of mobile triggering. That's going to be a copy of Soaring Falcon moving from 5 to 4, and Baharroth and his Hawks are going to be moving to planet number 1. So a little bit interesting that we saw this go down like it did. I suppose our Baharroth player must be rather afraid of that Earthcast Technician being able to shoot and hit the Warlord for 4, just because a Baharroth bloodied kind of crumples. I believe he goes from a 2/6 to a 1/5 if memory serves. But planet number 1, the Baharroth's Hawks swing for 3. That 3 is going to be dropped down to 1 by the discard of a Repulsor Impact Field. Interesting deck inclusion there for Starblaze. Probably not something you see every day, but that means the auxiliaries are going to live. Baharroth is going to take 2 points of damage. Baharroth swings in response. That's going to be a dead copy of the Ardent Auxiliaries. That's going to be a battle presumably won. That's going to be +1 resource for Baharroth, -1 resource for Starblaze. And that is going to be 2 points of damage now on our Phoenix Lord Warlord. So note, Starblaze is going to be able to win the battle entirely uncontested at planet number 2. That's Yavharn, the player, which, if you trigger its ability, both players are forced to pick an army unit from their hand and put it into play directly into their HQ. But you definitely don't see it triggered too tremendously often, and it looks like Starblaze did decide not to trigger that effect. But both of our players resolve an HQ phase. That's going to be 4 resources and 2 cards for each of our players. New planet number 5 is going to be Aatrox Prime, the planetary bombardment planet, and it looks like I actually spoke ever so slightly too soon. That's going to be a copy of Calamity being played. So for the cost of 2, as a headquarters action to the right, that's going to be a copy of Slith Mercenaries and Cabalite Halfborn being bounced to Baharroth's hand. And now that Cabalite means he draws a card, and he's going to be able to subsequently replay that to potentially draw an additional card if it's presumably killed during combat. On the left side of the table, note that that was 2 copies of Earthcast Technician removed. It was a Sanctioned Psyker that was also returned to Starblaze's hand, and even though Starblaze has got, well, I suppose he had 2 copies of Recon Drones in his hand, because those have the limited keyword, they're only going to be able to be deployed, limit 1 time per round. So he throws out his first copy of Recon Drones to planet number 5, but he's got another copy in hand that he's not going to be able to play, and if those ECTs are going to be able to fetch him additional copies of, say, Promotion or Recon Drones, it doesn't even really matter too terribly much, just because having won planet number 1, that means Baharroth has a green Strongpoint type icon planet in his victory display, and if he picks up planets numbers 1 and number 2, then he's potentially going to be able to win the game through those green Strongpoint type icons. But if he screws it up, then his victory condition is going to have to be kind of recalculated dramatically, because 3, 4, and 5, we see no green icons whatsoever. But planets 1 and 2 both have, each their Tricon planets, so certainly there are quite a few abundant options there. Now we're currently going to be waiting on Baharroth, it looks like, for what he's going to do. Commander Starblaze's ability is definitely not doing anything at this point. Starblaze, kind of the entire premise of that Warlord is that he can include any kind of common Astra Militarum cards in his deck, but he can't include any other cards from an allied faction. And when Starblaze is commit to a planet, you can pick a friendly AM unit at an adjacent planet and pull it over to Starblaze's planet, but that really doesn't do a whole hell of a lot when you've got no units here on the tabletop. But at planet number 1, looks like our Baharroth player's just having a hell of a time in regard to his bad luck and the opponent's good luck. It's going to be a copy of Prophetic Farseer being played for the cost of 3. It's a 1 command icon, 2/4 Psyker that allows you to look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck and to discard any of those cards upon which you find printed shield icons. He was not lucky enough to discard any of those, and it looks like our Starblaze player, after putting out another another copy of ECT to planet number 4, came across a copy of Gun Drone, so for the cost of 2, you could either play that as a 2/2 unit, or more likely you're going to be able to slap it onto one of your existing army units as an attachment, in which case it confers an area effect 2. And even though Starblaze doesn't have the same predilection for armor bane that Anshi, another Tau Warlord, does, area effect 2 is a hell of a thing, most definitely, and especially if you're up against the likes of the rather fragile avian Eldar, Baharroth, and his Hawks. So we'll have to see what exactly, if anything, those get played onto. So note that at present, planet number 2 is going to be the earliest possible victory condition for Baharroth. So our opponent, to the left there, Starblaze, is definitely going to want to try to stack a significant number of units on that planet, or otherwise prevent Baharroth from winning at planet number 1. But note, Starblaze currently has initiative at planet number 1. He just doesn't have any worthwhile units sitting there to try to capture that planet, and it's kind of an undesirable battle ability regardless, Yavarn there, so kind of a crusty planet to heavily invest in. But note, planet number 2, we've got a copy of the alternate art Colosseum Fighters. They're going to be a 2-cost common allied Dark Eldar army unit. They're a 1/2, again with no command icons, bit of a theme here in this Baharroth deck, which is kind of odd. Baharroth is normally known for running a lot of command, like his signature units are 2 command icon units, but Colosseum Fighters bounces your topmost event card in your discard pile back to your hand. That's going to be Calamity, so I wouldn't be surprised to see those Kabalite Halfborn gracing the tabletop in the near future. But all of a sudden there is posed a significant problem to Baharroth at planet number 2. For the cost of 4, we've got a copy of Assault Valkyrie. That is a 1 command icon 4/4 with the flying keyword, and the last time that I checked, despite the suggestive card art, neither Baharroth nor his Hawks nor really anything else the Eldar has a lot of easy access to is going to have that printed flying keyword, and that's going to make a 4/4 unit rather difficult to chew through indeed. I mean, if the Baharroth's Hawks are going to be able to attack for 3, cut in half, round it up to 2, and then you can shield away all that damage, the Assault Valkyries are going to be a hell of a target to chew through indeed. And then if our Starblaze player is running Repulsor Impact Fields, that could just pose a hell of a threat to Baharroth's victory condition. Note that we've got another ECT sitting at planet number 2 that was played by Starblaze, and I believe that tossed another copy of Gun Drones into his hand. But fortunately for Baharroth's sake, the opponent, his opponent, Starblaze, I'm not trying to show too much bias here, I don't know either of these players, there's no ambush platforms, there's not going to be any surprise area effect to shenanigans, as is wont to occur on occasion with the Tau. And I suppose now that I think about it, that would be a hell of a surprise 30th birthday present, somebody showing up with gun drones and just absolutely annihilating me. But let's see here. Baharroth is going to arrive at planet number 2 during our command phase. Starblaze is going to be showing up to planet number 3. And looks like, did Starblaze literally pull the Assault Valkyrie from 2 to 3? Very interesting indeed. So planet number 1 is going to be a resource to the right for Baharroth. Planet number 2 is going to be, it's going to be 1 card for Baharroth. Again, the glare makes Iridial, that healing planet, difficult to detect. And then planet number 3 is going to be a card and a resource to the left for Starblaze. Planet number 4 is going to be a couple of cards to the left for Starblaze. Planet number 5 is going to be a card and a resource to the left for Starblaze. So Baharroth is striking an odd balance between high command icon units and no command icon units, and I suppose we'll kind of have to see how it's going to end up working out for him. But the Tau play a very strong economic game thanks to those recon drones and whatnot, and unfortunately our Eldar player has not been fortunate enough to come across any of his Bealtan Guardians, which I can only imagine he's going to be running in his deck. But note, the Soaring Falcon has moved from planet 3 to 2, and that's going to be a whole hell of a lot of units all at 1 planet. And I guess kind of the thought process here is maybe Starblaze is wanting to set himself up for the following round to try to block off the victory condition of his opponent, because, like, I mean, just note, Baharroth is currently sitting at our planet number 2. The Hawks quite conveniently pick off the Earthcast Technician there, so that's going to be a dead ECT, and now during the following round we could have Starblaze send himself to our soon-to-be planet number 1 and then drag the Assault Valkyrie over to that location so that he can try to dispatch anything and everything that the Baharroth player deposits upon that planet. So, planet number 1 was indeed captured by Baharroth. That was going to be Yavvarn. It was not triggered, it's looking like, so neither of our players put units into play. That's going to be 2 green strongpoint type icons, one by Baharroth to the right, and it looks like Iridial, our planet 3, was activated by Starblaze, which resulted in Aatrox Prime firing at Baharroth's HQ. So note that Baharroth is currently just sitting at, 1 point of damage. He won at Iridial. He pulled 2 points of damage off of himself, and now he's got 1 point of damage again, as does that Prophetic Farseer. Looks like, and I guess I can't know for sure, but it's looking tentatively like Baharroth isn't running much in the way of shield cards in his deck here. So, I suppose punch number 2 of the 1-2 Calamity combo is going to be none other than Inquisitor Caius Roth, and that's going to be exactly what we see. So for the cost of 5, that is, if memory serves, a 3/5 1-command icon Psyker Neutral Elite unique army unit, and that is going to force both players to discard down to a total of 4 cards in hand. Actually, I believe I'm slightly mistaken. I think that Inquisitor Caius Roth is just the cost of 4. But the instant this match is over, I'll definitely be checking in the comments. So, in regard to what exactly we've seen discarded, looks like we saw a copy of Kabalite Halfborn to the right, and now Starblaze is just up against some really difficult choices here. He's got a couple of copies of Assault Valkyrie, he's got a Deception, an Elysian Assault Team, a gun drones or 2, a Suppressive Fire, and that's kind of the crappy thing about Inquisitor Caius Roth, that presumably 4-cost unique unit. He forces both players to discard down to 4 cards, and if you're winning a lot of economy, that's great, but that is just an absolute mountain of cards being ditched there. That was probably at least 8 or 9 cards being thrown away by our Starblaze player, and now what, if anything, are we going to see? Starblaze has got a total of 6 resources, and he's going to have to be able to put out some reasonably powerful units in order to have any chance whatsoever of winning at planet number 1, and I don't know if it's exactly going to cut it to put out a copy of Sanctioned Psyker. So that is, again, it's a 0-4 unit sitting at that planet, and it's currently staring down a potentially 3-2, a 3-5, a 1-5, and a 1-2, and Starblaze himself isn't exactly the most formidable unit in the game, and even pulling over that copy of Assault Valkyrie, it looks like that's going to be just a really difficult battle to win. I'd feel much better about Starblaze's odds had he saved one of those Assault Valkyries to dump onto planet number 1, but I suppose as is, let's see if this is going to be a 3-planet win for Baharroth, or if he's going to end up losing at this planet, and then things are going to go all the way bad here. So, okay, I was going to say, I wasn't sure if he'd gotten rid of both copies of Gun Drones or what, but a copy of Gun Drones currently affixed on that copy of Sanctioned Psyker is going to be fantastic, because Area Effect 2, dealt out to all 4 of those units, you're potentially going to be able to kill off the Hawks and the Colosseum Fighters, and, grievously wound Baharroth himself, really prior to your opponent being able to do anything. Baharroth at the moment only has a blue tech icon and 1 red material type icon if he cannot win at this planet, and it's looking like Starblaze is quickly going to make this absolutely impossible for Baharroth to try to win at. We've got a copy of one of the colloquially referred to by me as Warlord Friend units. It's going to be the 2-cost Borkon Recruits, 2 attack, 2 hit points, 1 command icon. They're a soldier, which means that they're eligible for Elysian Assault Team replacement upon being destroyed, and of course, provided a Warlord is at their planet, whether it's Starblaze, whether it's Baharroth, they're going to be able to attack for a total of 4. So, like I said, Baharroth quickly turns into wet toilet paper the instant he ends up being bloodied, and therefore it's going to be rather dangerous indeed should Baharroth send himself to planet number 1, just because there's not going to be any way that I think our Baharroth player is going to be able to win at that planet. The Inquisitor could attack for 3, or Baharroth's Hawks could attack for 3, but regardless of which unit does it, even attacking with initiative, that's going to be the Sanctioned Psyker surviving, and it's going to have a great sterling opportunity to just pulverize and obliterate our Phoenix Lord Warlord there in each and every one of his units. But this is about to be a little bit of a bloodbath, is what mine heart tells me. The part of the cards, I suppose, as it were, speaks to me. Planet number 1, Baharroth shows up, and Commander Starblaze shows up. Is Baharroth going to be mobiling away? I do not know. Are all of these units going to be mobiling away? It's looking like that may be the case. So, command icons. At planet number 1, Starblaze has 4, and looks like that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, thanks to Inquisitor Caius Roth. So, the planet number 1 there is looking like it's going to be a card to the right for Baharroth. Planet number 2 is going to be won by neither player because Starblaze drug over his Assault Valkyrie, and then subsequently during combat, we saw our Baharroth player relocate himself, and then planet number 3 is going to be a couple of cards to the left for Starblaze, recovering from that Inquisitor Caius Roth devastation, and then planet number 4 is going to be a card and a resource for Starblaze as well. Note that planet number 5 is going to be Planum, but it's going to be entirely irrelevant to this combat. And speaking of combat, it looks like Baharroth cannot decide. Does he want to relocate himself to planet number 2, or does he want to stay at planet number 1? He is being far more bold than I am. He decides to keep his Warlord at planet number 1, and I can only imagine that unless the Baharroth player knows something that I do not, that is going to be a very bloodied Warlord. So let's see. I don't think we have the resources for Empower or anything along those lines. That means there's no way in hell that that Sanctioned Psyker is going to be able to be dispatched in a single swing. Deception is a Tau event. It's not an Eldar event, and it's a deploy action anyways. So yeah, that about sucks. That's going to be the Searing Burst Cannon discarded as a shield, and I guess that's what you get when your opponent draws just through a metric ton of cards. So the Searing Burst Cannon discarded as a shield means the Sanctioned Psyker is going to take 0 points of damage. Area Effect 2 is going to kill the Colosseum Fighters. It's going to outright kill that copy of Baharroth's Hawks. This is going to be 2 points of damage on the Soaring Falcon, kind of off screen there. 2 points of damage on Inquisitor Caius Roth. 2 points of damage on a now nearly dead and currently exhausted Prophetic Farseer, which is really only a 2-1 at this point. And now Baharroth himself is sitting not so pretty at a total of 3 hit points remaining. If Baharroth retreats as his next combat action, then the Borkon recruits are going to be able to potentially attack and kill Inquisitor Caius Roth, and then the Soaring Falcon could be dispatched by the Assault Valkyrie. So things are looking like they're going to go from bad to terrible for our Inquisitor. Looks like the discard of a Calamity is going to mean Inquisitor Caius Roth is only going to be taking 1 point of damage from that effect, but he's still potentially going to be able to be killed off by either the Borkon recruits or the Assault Valkyrie. And now let's see what exactly happens. Inquisitor Caius Roth is going to take a swing, presumably at the Borkon recruits. Do we have another 2 shield value card? Yes, we do. That's going to be a copy of Deception, putting just a single point of damage on the Borkon recruits. They themselves are going to swing, and that is going to be a bloodied Baharroth, so that is going to be a 1/5 Phoenix Lord that is no longer mobile. And now, if Commander Starblaze is running Catachan outposts and rattling Deadeyes, that could be a very dead Eldar Warlord indeed. So planet number 1, the Soaring Falcon, takes a swing, finishes off the Borkon recruits. The Assault Valkyrie kills Inquisitor Caius Roth, and that is going to be a whole hell of a lot of resources down the drain right there. Starblaze himself takes a swing. That's going to be the Prophetic Farseer now destroyed, and that is just going to be that Soaring Falcon at planet number 1, which does quite wisely retreat at the end of a combat round. Iridial is going to be added to Starblaze's victory display. That's going to be 1 planet type icon of each kind added to Starblaze's victory display, and I suppose now it's going to be Baharroth has a victory condition on planet number 4, or planet number 2 is going to be the victory condition for Starblaze through those blue technology type icons, or if we see a planet 1 and 3 victory for Starblaze, those are options as well. So things are looking pretty grim indeed. For our Starblaze player, note that the units in play are definitely favoring Starblaze. I suppose we could see Starblaze sent to planet number 1 just to drop off those units and try to win just by having a really strong Warlord retinue, or Starblaze could drop off those units at planet 2, his victory condition planets, but I suppose really all of it kind of remains, all of it hinges upon what exactly Starblaze has at his disposal. We see a signature support being played out by Commander Starblaze. That's, I believe it's the 2-cost, and God, I feel terrible I screwed up with Inquisitor Caius Roth, and now I'm screwing up the cost of this card too. Anyway, it's Starblaze's outpost, whether it costs 1, whether it costs 2, it allows you to swap one of your AM army units in play, you return it to your hand in order to put a Tau faction unit of equivalent or lesser cost into play at that same planet. So I suppose the dream, if you want to call it that, might be having that Sanction Psyker attack with area effect 2, and then you bounce it to your hand in order to put a Tau unit into play, something along the lines of a Borkon Recruits, which subsequently attacks for 4. But there's certainly plenty of options here. On Baharroth's side of the table, we see a copy of the Warlock Destructor, so it's going to be a 2-cost, 1-command icon, 3/4 Psyker. As a forced reaction at the beginning of your deploy phase, you've either got to invest an additional 1 resource into that unit, that Extortionist there, or you are forced to discard it, and Baharroth definitely needs each and every just value unit he can possibly lay his greedy little wings on. Planet number 2, we see another common AM unit. That's going to be a Steel Legion Chimera. So for the cost of 3, that's a 1-command icon, 2/4, and whenever any of your non-vehicle units at that same planet end up being the target of an attack, you decrease the damage dealt out by 1. So that would be a potentially great target to, say, receive 3 points of damage, then it attacks, or, like, let's say it attacks, then it takes damage, and then you bounce it to your hand to replace it with, like a Borkon Recruits or something like that. So you save a bunch of damage, and then you get an additional attack. But we've got another Warlock Destructor at planet number 2, and then note, planet number 3, we've got a copy of the Slith Mercenary. We see a normal, non-alternate art promotion being stuck to the Warlock Destructor at 2, which is going to give it a total of 3 command icons. And I can only imagine that after this store championship event, presumably our Baharroth player is going to slide that nice new alternate art copy of promotion he received for participating directly into that very card sleeve. So do a little bit of a good old swap there. But where exactly is Starblaze going to go? Baharroth is going to want to go someplace safe, so he does not get just murdered. I can only imagine that's going to be probably planet number 4 or planet number 3 if he wants to activate the ability of Aatrox Prime. Either way, he's going to be able to activate, well, like, wherever his Warlord goes, he wants to activate the abilities. So if you're going to get a card and a resource regardless, why not activate Aatrox Prime and damage out, a flying unit and everything else as opposed to just having one of your units move thanks to Planum, because that would be no good at all. But planet number 1, we see the Steel Legion Chimera move to planet number 1, which is going to set it up quite nicely to get shot with Aatrox Prime. And I guess planet number 1 is going to be a total of 1 resource and 1 card for Starblaze. Planet number 2 is going to be a couple of cards, 1 by our player to the right there, Baharroth. Planet number 3 is going to be a card and resource for Baharroth, and planet number 4 is going to be nothing for either player. Note that the Soaring Falcon relocates itself to planet number 2. That's maybe a little bit premature, actually, because, like, during the following turn's combat round, you're now going to have 0 command icons where your opponent... Well, okay, the recon drones are about to get killed, but still, I don't necessarily see why you would move the Soaring Falcon now. It doesn't seem like there's any pressure to make your decision right away. So, just Establish a rhythm, don't rush, and just take your time and you're gonna be fine. At least that's what I learned in elementary health class. So, planet number 1, that Steel Legion Chimera and Commander Starblaze are gonna be the only unexhausted units, and the Steel Legion Chimera is gonna take a swing for a lowly 2 at the Warlock Destructor. I've gotten so used to that unit swinging for 3 deployed by the likes of Broderick War, but now the Warlock Destructor is going to deliver an attack at something, and here's the crappy thing. You could either attack Starblaze, but then the Steel Legion Chimera is going to decrease that damage to 2, minus whatever shield card is used, or you could attack the Steel Legion Chimera, like he did, and then if it takes a bunch of damage, you can just bounce it to your hand and swap it for a Tau faction unit thanks to Starblaze's outpost. Commander Starblaze, Speak the Devil, takes a swing, kills off that Warlock Destructor, and now what's going to be great about the following round is we can have that Steel Legion Chimera show up at planet number, well, soon to be 1, exhausted. You can swap it for a Tau faction card, and therefore it's basically going to go from the equivalent of an exhausted, practically dead unit to a ready, rather formidable one. I'm trying to think of a lot of Tau cards that are 3 cost that Starblaze is likely to play. Maybe there's something along the lines of Carnivore Pack, but I don't think that strikes me as too terribly likely. But definitely Borkon Recruits is probably a likely specimen here. Planet number 1 is going to be Karnath, and what kind of sucks about that is that's going to be an opportunity for Starblaze to activate Planum, and that's going to be the Assault Valkyrie being relocated to, it looks like, planet number 3. And what's interesting about that is Baharroth is going to be triggering a battle at his planet, and now he's got a 4/4 flying keyword unit to try to deal with. And because Baharroth himself is a 1/5, that's not looking like it's very likely to occur, and those Slith Mercenaries are only a 2/2. They're only going to be able to deal out a single point of damage to our Assault Valkyrie there, and that is making things look pretty grim indeed for Baharroth, so I could only imagine we'll see a combat turn. Well, I would imagine it's going to be like the end of the combat round when Baharroth decides to retreat, but let's see what exactly happens here. The Slith Mercenary is going to take a swing. Is it going to be at the Recon Drones, or is it going to be at the Assault Valkyrie? It's going to be at the Assault Valkyrie, so 2 cut in half is just going to be 1. There's not going to be any shield used, and now Baharroth himself, is he going to deal another point of damage to the Assault Valkyrie? Okay. I can only imagine that must have probably been his target. We see a copy of Bond of Brotherhood being discarded, the signature event, the incredibly powerful signature event being discarded as a shield, and that's almost a bit of a shame that we see that discarded as a shield just because it's so incredibly powerful and could almost guarantee that our Tau player could potentially win this game here. But that's going to be the Recon Drones attacking ineffectually for 0, so it's going to be able to do absolutely nothing. And now what do we see? It's going to be just Baharroth retreating at the end of a combat round and taking that Slith Mercenary with him, and that means the Assault Valkyrie and the Recon Drones, they are going to be able to activate Aatrox Prime, and that's going to be the bombardment of an adjacent planet. That's going to be the Soaring Falcon taking a point of damage, and that is going to be the Warlock Destructor taking a point of damage. So note that as we go through an HQ phase, there is no new planet. Both players get 2 cards. Both players get 4 resources. The initiative token passes hands. It's now going to be in Baharroth's control, and Baharroth is going to have to pay a resource to keep his Warlock Destructor in play, which it looks like he does. So the Soaring Falcon and the Warlock Destructor are all that stand between Baharroth and losing the game at planet number 1, unless he's come across some powerful units. He's got 4 resources at hand, so he could play out another copy of a Destructor, or he could do something like a signature army unit, but then Baharroth is going to have to be hanging out at that planet, and Baharroth is a 1/5, and he's just going to completely wither under any kind of fire whatsoever. I guess Baharroth could end up being sent during the command phase to planet number 2 just to deny 1 resource and 1 card to your opponent, but then he's going to drop off Baharroth, that copy of Slith Mercenaries that's going to be able to contribute nothing at all. And I suppose Starblaze is going to be going to planet number 1. He'll be able to pull the Assault Valkyrie over. He'll have the Sanctioned Psyker at that planet. He'll have that Steel Legion Chimera, which he can, bounce back into his hand to replace with a ready Tau unit. And if he's got another copy of Bond of Brotherhood, or if he's got any number of other different effects, it's looking awfully grim for Baharroth. So our Eldar player is going to have to hope he can come across a whole hell of a lot. He puts a copy of Slith Mercenary into play at planet number 1, and that's going to be a copy of the Warlord Marksman being played by Commander Starblaze. So for the cost of 1, it's got a command icon, it's 1 attack, 2 hit points, it's got the ranged keyword. We see a Cabalite Halfborn being played at that planet, but the instant that gun drones wielding Sanctioned Psyker is going to have the opportunity to fire, that is going to be a whole hell of a lot of dead units. In fact, that area effect volley is going to be able to kill off each and every unit controlled by the enemy at that planet, with the sole exception of the Warlock Destructor, without the assistance of shields. So Baharroth decides to bite the bullet and go to planet number 1. He's going to drop off a copy of Slith Mercenary, which is going to show up exhausted. At least it should be exhausted. Let's hope our player there to the right does exhaust his Slith Mercenary that traveled from HQ. The Assault Valkyrie gets relocated. Baharroth is going to be a tremendous liability to his controller, to his owner. And planet number 1, that's going to be, let's see here, 1, 2, 3 command icons to the left, and that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, I guess it should technically be 5 to the right. So if I did my math right, that should be Baharroth winning command at planet number 1. It's kind of obscured by glare, but I want to say it's a card and a resource to the right for Baharroth. Planet number 2 is going to be a card and a resource to the left for Starblaze, and then planet number 3 is going to be entirely uncontested. So remember that at planet number 1, one of these copies of Slith Mercenary should be exhausted, but we've got a 1/5 Warlord that if he is killed, that is going to be game over for Baharroth. So our Tau player is going to be able to attack for 1 at range. He's going to be able to attack. Okay, yeah, looks like that was maybe a little bit premature there with exhausting your Warlock Destructor. So the Warlord Marksman is going to be able to attack at range for 1. Is that going to be Baharroth as the target? No, well, probably it is, yes, but it's going to be a copy of Nullify, discarded as a shield, so that means Baharroth takes no points of damage. Now, the initiative token in the possession of our Eldar player is going to be the Warlock Destructor, swinging for 3, and what exactly is it going to be at? Is that going to be a killing blow to the Steel Legion Chimera, or is that going to be doted upon some other target? The Assault Valkyrie, of course, as it's a vehicle, is not going to be protected by the Assault Valkyrie. So what are we going to see? Looks like Starblaze has got the damage tokens out, but he's yet to place them upon a unit. So I think is okay. So it's going to be the Sanctioned Psyker. So that Sanctioned Psyker takes 2 points of damage, and that is going to be critically important for our Eldar player to get rid of it. If that Sanctioned Psyker dies, then this is not going to be an auto lose for Baharroth. But kind of the crappy thing here is if Baharroth is going to be pressured away from that planet, if he has to eat up a combat turn retreating, then that's going to be all the more punishment, potentially going out to, I guess, like, okay, if Baharroth has to waste a combat turn to retreat, then that's just going to be more wasted time, wasted actions on part of Baharroth. So Assault Valkyrie takes a swing of 4, Nullify interjects, but that's still going to be 3 points of damage dealt to Baharroth, and it looks like Baharroth is going to be just sweating bullets right there. If Starblaze is going to be able to attack, if the Earthcast Technician is going to be able to attack as well, outside of a lot of additional shields, that is going to be Baharroth dead. And granted, there are a lot of Dark Eldar units to deal out some significant attacks, but we could even see the Starblaze's outpost turn one of these exhausted Astra Militarum units into an immediate game over. So it's looking like maybe Baharroth might be able to shield away the damage that currently presents itself, like an instance of 1 and an instance of 2, but if we do see a Borkon Recruits or something more powerful along those lines drop into play, I don't know if Baharroth is going to be able to necessarily withstand that kind of firepower. So Baharroth is currently 2 hit points remaining, and he's trying to think what exactly does he want to do with his remaining units. He's got those Slith mercenaries, which can attack for 2. Note, one of them is supposed to be exhausted, and no, it's going to be a copy of Kabalite Halfborn, throwing a single point of damage, presumably upon that Steel Legion Chimera. So the Steel Legion Chimera is going to be destroyed, and now let's see if this is going to be the game-ending play. Are we going to see the Assault Valkyrie or the Sanction Psyker swapped with a strong Tau unit, and is that okay? So that's going to be Commander Starblaze's outpost. Exhausting. That is going to be added to his hand. The gun drones is going to be discarded, and that is going to be a Borkon Recruits, and that's going to be a swing of 4. Do you have a 3 shield value card? Of course, the answer is no, and that's going to be the GG. So good game. Congratulations to Mike Utenkov for managing to pilot Commander Starblaze to victory, but regardless, it's always a pleasure seeing Baharroth in action, so a very well-played game indeed to Jeffery Allen as well. Thank you as always to Proper Sir Christopher Dale Bates for sending in yet another video captured at the Fantasy Flight Games Event Center all the way over in Roseville, Minnesota, just because it always feels like a particularly special experience whenever I have the opportunity to spectate, commentate, and publish one of these matches to my channel, a game taken from the very heart of FFG itself. Another well played to both of our players today, and to you, the viewer. I hope you enjoyed this game. If you did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already, or if you are already subscribed, as ever, I always encourage you to share this content, because the more engagement these videos receive, the more eyes there are on Conquest, the more players are exposed to this game, they might like what they see, they may give this LCG a try, join our living card game community, and of course, all together we continue to send an increasingly great message to Fantasy Flight Games, telling them to continue to support this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I would definitely recommend that you do so on Facebook or on Twitter, and if you yourself are a content creator, if you make videos, podcasts, articles, or anything relevant to Conquest, I definitely want you to get in touch so that I can promote your content, and as always, I endeavor to continue to grow this community. If you ever feel like giving back to the Hive Tyrant, I would be absolutely honored, humbled, and deeply appreciative were you to donate as little as $1 a month to my Patreon account, as each and every dollar receives goes into helping me to recover some of my file hosting and operating expenses, and every additional invested cent just goes to improving the audio and video quality of this channel. So, as always, thank you so much for watching, and once again, be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come.